Hey, and welcome to part 3 of my Mai Cosplay tutorial. This is going to be for the bottom portion that goes underneath the tunic, so the turtleneck and the pants that go underneath. I'm going to be using pre-existing sewing patterns. They're both McCall sewing patterns. I'm just going to be adjusting them so that they suit Mai. So for the top, I'm going to be using an MA138. And for the bottoms, I'm going to be using M7475. So I'm going to start with the sleeves, and honestly the sleeves is what took up most of my time. The sleeves honestly were so difficult to get just right. I wanted them to be as big and billowy and dramatic as Mai's little bell sleeve situation is. And of course, my dog, in frame, refusing to move. Typical. So I just attached 2 tissue paper pieces to it, and I made basically like a triangle shape from the elbow and the wrist. The measurements were roughly 16 inches wide along the wrist and 21.5 inches long from the elbow to the end. And I cut it along the fold of the fabric. After cutting it out, I actually tried it on, and I wasn't necessarily a fan. I mean, it looks nice, but I wanted it even bigger. So when I readjusted it, the bottom was 22.5 and the elbow to the end was 26 inches. After cutting it out, I noticed that it didn't retain its shape, so I used some fusible interfacing so that it stayed more stiff and kept its shape. I used a damp cloth and a medium to low heat iron and pressed on the fusible interfacing. And there's the difference. Look how beautiful it is with the fusible interfacing. It's perfect. So since it's really ugly and it can be seen when you wear it, I went ahead and made like a lining fabric for it. So essentially I just got the same fabric piece and I sandwiched it on top of it so that they're the right sides are facing together. And once you sew it together, you'll be able to flip it inside out. I also figured that maybe I could use it like a pocket for her knives. It might not look good, it might look bulky and weird if I do that, but I'll give it a try. We'll see how it goes. And once I flipped it inside out and I got all those edges as pointed as possible, I went ahead and ironed it so the edges are crisp. Alright, next I did the blouse portion, and since this is a dress pattern, I went ahead and cut it down to roughly torso length. I kind of guessed. I didn't actually measure my torso length, which is a bad idea. You could possibly mess it up really easily. Luckily, I guessed correctly. And then I did the back. And so for the back, I also guessed. I didn't even line it up with the other fat pattern piece. Like, I don't know why I'm so ridiculous and stubborn on doing the smart thing. Luckily, they were about the same length. And again, I'm just going to be cutting along the fold of the fabric. And after I cut it out, I went ahead and pinned it together along the seams. When I sewed it with a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. That I tackled the collar. So the collar pattern wasn't long enough for some reason. I'm assuming because it was supposed to be a stretch fabric. Originally it was 16 inches and I lengthened it to 22 inches. Or maybe I just have a very fat neck. Who knows? And after that, I flipped it inside out and ironed it, of course. And I folded it in half so I can mark where the two pieces should meet. Alright, after sewing it together, there's the collar. I left the back open since I'm going to be putting a zipper anyways. Alright, and now I'm attaching the sleeve to the top the same way. I measured out where the center is and I met them together. And I sewed it together the same way I did with every other piece. I just used a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. The reason I'm using a zigzag stitch is because my fabric frays a lot and I just don't want it to come undone. It probably would have been better if I could use my serger, but I still have yet to figure out how to use it. And after I sewed the shoulder portion, I went ahead and sewed the length of the sleeve. Alright, and now I'm going for the bottoms finally. So for the pants are actually almost like a capri length, so I had to add some length to it, and I also widen it a smidge as well. So for the length I added about 6 inches. I just used regular tissue paper to add some length to it. And on the sides I added about 2 to 3 inches just so it has a little bit more of a big old leg flowy pattern look. For the longest time I actually thought that Mai was wearing a dress until I really looked at it and I watched the show again and I was like, oh, she's wearing pants. What a queen. Which, I mean, makes sense that she would wear pants. I mean, if you're gonna be fighting and throwing knives and climbing on shiz, you're gonna want some pants, not a skirt. I don't know if I've said this already, but I honestly treated my sewing pattern like a puzzle. I didn't read the instructions. I didn't take my time to read them. I just kind of guessed and was like, yeah, this looks like it should go right here. And I kind of used the picture on the pattern and kind of was like, yeah, I think that goes there. I think that goes there. I recommend reading the instructions. I feel like that's the smart thing to do. Alright, and then I sewed the crotch of the front piece, the two front pieces together. And then I sewed the crotch of the back pieces together. And then this is just the waistband. I added interfacing so it keeps its shape. As you can see, I completely skipped over sewing the yoke onto the pants. Like, I'm just so good at recording, aren't I? You know, I probably just forgot to hit record. That's probably just what happened. Yeah. You know, this is probably why they tell you that you should read the instructions in sewing patterns. I like sewed the crotch like all the way down here. Like, I should have stopped right here. And I kept going. Like, now I'm just gonna have to seam rip all of it. Why do I do this to myself? All I have to do is read. I just have to read some instructions, and I still don't do that. Alright, and after that mishap, I went ahead and sewed myself some pockets. I'm pretty sure May doesn't have back pockets, like that wasn't a thing in Avatar. But your girl wanted some pockets. Especially when I'm walking around the con floor, like, I want somewhere to put my phone and my wallet. And then I went ahead and I sewed the front and the back pieces together. And again, I was just doing a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. And then for the zipper, I did a cut along the back of the shirt. And I switched my foot to a zipper foot. So I've never used a zipper till now. So I honestly had to watch like 10,000 videos on how to do it. I'm gonna link one of the videos that I watched below that I really enjoyed. That was really good and informative. And sew as close to the teeth as possible. And it's going to be like the right side of the zipper and the right side of the fabric facing each other. So you're going to be looking at the wrong side of the zipper and the right side of the fabric, essentially. And then for the other side, you're going to flip the foot over to the other end and do the same thing. Right, and for the pants I did the same thing, cut it in half, seam rip the bottom portion since that's already in the middle. But there's the final product. Wow, look at it. It's beautiful, isn't it? Alright, and that's the end of my May cosplay tutorial. I'm going to be making a part 3, essentially just for the shoes, the wig, and knives, essentially. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching.